This is the Dean Obadala Show on SiriusXM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. We're live Wednesday, September 25th, and in studio for the first time on my show, someone you guys know from MSNBC or the other shows on this network, Midwin Charles, a TV and radio legal analyst, civil trial and criminal defense lawyer at Midwin Charles and Associates, contributor at Essence Magazine. Midwin, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Were we on Joy's show together or on Candace's show?
It was Joy.
Joy
Joy Reid, yeah.
Joy's our buddy. Joy
love
is the
her.
the best of all.
Love her, yeah.
There's so much law going on, and we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
Let me just get your reaction before we'll break it down a little bit more in detail from a legal point of view. Mm-hmm. But when you read this, the memo of the conversation Trump had with the leader, the Ukrainian leader, what was just your visceral reaction to reading that?
You know, I think when I read it, I just thought to myself, wow, the first thing I thought is we would not be here if Congress had done their job after the Mueller report came out. Okay. When you look at the timing of this crime, or several crimes, it's in July of this year, 2019. The Mueller report came out in May. The Mueller report outlined 10, not 2, not 4, not 7, not 9, but 10 instances in which this president obstructed justice. It was clear, it was obvious, but Democratic leadership, I think, failed to do their job to try to distill the information in the report and try to convince and try to take that information to the American people and to the American public and make a case for impeachment. It was clear, particularly when you tack on all the other instances in which this president has violated democratic norms and rules and all kinds of things. So had they done that in May, we wouldn't get to this point. Right. And so some people will be like, well, what's the harm? What's the big deal? Well, number one, you just saw this president, give a press conference. He's been on the world stage for the last 2 days when this news broke. What it does is it further diminishes our credence, our credibility, our role on the world stage. It's embarrassing. We shouldn't have to be here. So that's the first thing that I thought, when I read this. The second thing that I thought is this is exactly how bribery goes down. When you are looking at criminal conduct, it's very rare that you get the, cookie cutter, law and order, how to get away with murder scenario playing out. It's always subterfuge. It's always, I know you really need this. Oh, by the way, did you know that I have the ability to kind of provide what it is that you need? That's typically how it goes. And when prosecutors are looking at this, when defense attorneys are looking at this, those are typically how the facts go. And what else do we know? We know that when Michael Cohen gave his congressional testimony, he described that is exactly how Donald Trump gets things done. He doesn't write things down. He doesn't use a computer. He doesn't use email. What he does is he uses code, and people who know him, people who work for him understand the code and they do what it is that he wants done.
And in this case, to me, it was so over the top reading this. And I read some excerpts. And I read it in my best Jersey accent because it sounded like the low-level mobsters out of a movie about we've been so good to you.
Yeah.
And we did everything. And the guy goes, yes, you have been.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And he's like, we need your help. He's like, yes, I know. We're the best for you. And then he goes, I got a favor to ask you. And literally used those words. To me, it really was much more damning than I expected. I thought it would be far more subtle. Not going, we did all these great things for you, right? He's like, yeah. And, there's been no reciprocity. You actually used the word reciprocity, Trump. And then it got to, let me ask you a favor. I never thought for the life of me it would get that ham-handed. We're over the top. Like, are you kidding me?
Right. And let's get real. This is a memo. It's not a transcript.
Exactly.
Right? You're an attorney. I'm an attorney. We know what a transcript looks like. It's like Trump, ... exactly what he said. This president of Ukraine, ... exactly what he said, verbatim, right? You go to court, you have a court stenographer, they type down every single thing. We don't know what was left out of this memo. So you can only imagine if this is what they released to the American public, what did they leave out? That's the first thing that comes to my mind because so henceforth everybody should stop calling this transcript. It's not a transcript. Mm-hmm. It's a memo, it's notes, it's notes of someone's recollection. So that's one of the most important things I think for people to remember.
I find it very interesting so much where Trump, I would like to ask you to do us a favor, right? And he asks, and you have now the talking points from the right going, well, he was concerned about corruption. The incident he's talking about, the firing of that prosecutor, was in March 2016. Why is Donald Trump in July 25th, 2019, asking about the firing of a prosecutor of March 2016? If Joe Biden was not the nominee, this conversation would have never happened. And there's something else I pointed out on the show today.
That's exactly right.
I went back and I'm like, what else happened July 25th? July 25th, a Fox News poll came out where Donald Trump was losing to Joe Biden by 10 points. That so outraged Donald Trump, he lashed out on Twitter against Fox News. And he made a big deal about this poll. And I think that's the day. It was after Mueller. He goes, I'm done. Mueller, the cloud's off.
I cleared
I'm
that.
down by 10. Get the Ukrainian guy on the phone.
Yes.
We got to start going after Biden.
Yes.
That poll unnerved him.
Yeah, and it's important for people to remember that this is not how things are done. If you believe that Joe Biden's son committed some sort of wrongdoing, you allow the FBI to handle it. Why are you getting your own personal attorney who doesn't work for this administration involved? And why are you also getting the Attorney General, Barr, right? Because he said I can get the Attorney General involved. What are you doing? He's the Attorney General, not the attorney specific. Although lately the way he has conducted himself, I keep saying, and I've said this on Joy's show, he's the attorney specific. He's the attorney specifically for Donald Trump. He is not the Attorney General. He has not done anything really for us as the American public. But this idea that you would snare and get in a personal attorney to be involved on diplomatic things, on things involving foreign nations, is completely unheard of. And to hold as a sort of carrot stick money that had been appropriated by Congress, that in and of itself is a violation. Like, Congress determined that those funds were necessary for the Ukraine. Congress determined that Ukraine is our ally. They need our help. Why? Because guess who's attacking them? Russia. Guess who annexed a portion of the Ukraine? Russia. So Congress decided that our tax dollars, people need to remember this, that money, that's our tax dollars, that 400 million, 300 million plus.
Right.
That's my money. You know what I'm saying? That's my coin. And so here he is with our money playing these little games like he's in the knockoff version of God, you know, what is it?
Goodfellas.
Yeah, like what are you doing?
I'm very familiar with Goodfellas.
Yeah.
I watched about 50 times. So in any event, that's my own issues I got about Goodfellas. This is, and I wanted to play for you, this is former federal prosecutor Ellie Honig on CNN today talking about, and I think it's so important because some people might go, well, I've read this memorandum and I don't see the exact quid pro quo, which is something for something, which you really need in a bribery case. That's what the experts say. That's what everyone says. And as Ellie Honig points out, in the real world, it's almost never going to be, here's this for that.
Yeah,
boom.
That's right.
And you don't even need that to prove the case. As Mimi Roach, who is a former federal prosecutor you see on MS all the time, wrote a great article going, the law is very clear that quid pro quo need not be explicit for a crime to have taken place. It can be inferred from the facts as a whole.
That's correct.
So let's play Ellie. And in this clip here, Lauren, we're going to play the clip, and you're going to hear another voice in between Ellie. That's Christine Amanpour on CNN International, reading some of the memorandum of Trump's conversation. But I want to leave that in there, even though it's kind of abrupt because we cut this together. You'll hear Ellie on the other side making all the sense in the world of this from a real world, so that people are going, I don't see the quid pro quo. Yeah. It's almost never going to be that quid pro quo.
That's right. And as a defense attorney, that is absolutely correct. It's never going to be that sort of perfect law and order version that people are expecting.
Like, dun-dun.
Right.
Dun-dun.
No.
Here's clip number 3. Here's Ellie Honig on CNN today.
I do see potential federal crimes here. I see potential bribery, potential extortion, and potential receipt of foreign election aid, all of which are federal crimes. But keep in mind, you do not need a crime in order to impeach. Impeachment can and historically has been based on abuse of power.
I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. And then the U.S., as we know, froze. The Trump administration froze over the summer hundreds of millions of dollars worth of aid, of military aid. So just from those two graphs, what do you make of it?
Yeah, that is as close to a quid pro quo as you will get in real life. I've charged and tried bribery cases on less clear conversations than this. They're both laying the stakes out on the table. The president of Ukraine says, your aid, foreign aid, is invaluable to us. We need it for our defense, and we're getting ready to buy more equipment from the United States. And then Donald Trump's response, this is the most important line in the whole thing. Right after that, Donald Trump says, I would like you to do us a favor, though. So I'm laying it on the line. And what's that favor? there's no mincing words. I want you to look into Hillary Clinton. I want you to look into the bot.
And that's almost Ellie doing his closing argument. As a prosecutor, you can hear it. No more important line. I can just see him going right here. And you said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Donald Trump has committed the crime of bribery.
That's right. And most importantly, those funds were frozen. Those funds had not been transferred to the Ukraine. He still held the carrot.
And what I find interesting, because we don't know what's going to happen with Pence, because Trump subtly pushed Pence under a small moving bus today. We're not sure, because he was asked at a stupid press conference, which I don't watch because they make you dumber. So I try not to watch.
I never do either. I can feel my brain cells dying as I watch him speak.
They asked him about.
I protect the brain cells.
You've got it. And they asked him about Mike Pence. He goes, you got to ask Mike Pence about that, which is never good for Mike Pence. So September 2nd. So this conversation is July 25th. We know the aid to the Ukraine was frozen at that time. It was frozen reportedly a week before. No one knows exactly because Trump never told anyone, but the reporting is pretty clear. Week before Ukrainian aid frozen. It gets freed up about September 11th or 12th. September 2nd, Mike Pence goes to the Ukraine, meets the Ukrainian leader, has a press conference saying, I will carry back to President Trump the progress that the Ukrainian president has made in the Ukraine are making on dealing with corruption in their country. And corruption seems to be the coded word here. And so did he go back and go, you know what? They're doing the investigation you wanted into Joe Biden. Release the money. This is just days later, the money's released. And I don't know. Yeah. Coincidence?
Yeah. No, this is exactly what an investigation would uncover, like the timing of it. And, all of this, and I feel like this entire presidency, this entire administration, it's just like one really long, bad episode of The Sopranos. Like it's so thuggish, and I can't think of a better word to describe the manner in which this president, his vice president, even the attorney general, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, like it's like y'all are thugs, like y'all are straight up thugs, and I know that we live in a time in a media where they only like to use that word when it comes to young black kids who have done something wrong, but I will tell you that the behavior of this president, the vice president, and the whole cast of characters is thuggish. It really is. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, if you read that memo, that's what the thugs do. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. And I'm telling you with Midwin Charles. Charles, you see her all the time on MSNBC. She's a civil trial and criminal defense attorney. So, when you... I don't know what the next step is, but this circle of criminality, potential criminality, I'm not going to be fair here, potential criminality, because of the memo, now includes Rudy Giuliani, which we suspected, but Bill Barr was a stunner. No one knew Bill Barr, and potentially Mike Pence. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about Rudy Giuliani, who seems the most exposed. In fact, Judge Napolitano said that he thinks that Rudy Giuliani may be a criminal co-conspirator. I'll play that clip when we come back and chat with our friend Midwin Charles right after this. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
Back to the Dean Obeidallah Show on SiriusXM Progress.
Welcome back. Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live Wednesday, September 25th. Breaking news all the time, folks. The screens are just, our monitors burn with the word breaking news in it because it's up so much. I'm here with Midwin Charles, TV and radio legal analyst, civil trial and criminal defense attorney, and contributor at Essence Magazine. So, Midwin, in the commercial break, you mentioned something that is so important, and other callers have made this point. When they get to the impeachment hearings, they're going to actually have formal impeachment hearings at some point. We talked about the idea of having members of Congress in charge or actually having a counsel they hire who does the questioning. What do you think is best? And
I tweeted about this earlier today. No more Oscar auditions from these Congress people. Like, I get it. This is your moment in the sun and you want to, let people know that you're outraged and you're upset about what's happening. You see a clear violation of laws and you've come up with these slick little colloquialisms that you want to kind of unleash on the witness. But I think if anybody watched that congressional testimony questioning of Corey Lewandowski, I think they can kind of agree with what I'm saying. In other words, let the attorneys ask the questions, because Corey Lewandowski's behavior, his disposition, the way in which he answered the questions while the Congress members were questioning him, it was rude, it was flagrant, it was disrespectful. He was like, oh, who gonna check me, boo? Like, that was his whole attitude. But as soon as the attorneys started to ask him questions, the questions were more pointed, they were more calculated. It was like a cross between a direct examination and a cross-examination. And what you ought to notice is that attorney's questioning was effective. The answers he got showed that Lewandowski was truly lying. And the most important thing is Corey Lewandowski's disposition and body language changed. It was almost as though he recognized that, wow, okay, this attorney, has a little bit more authority. In other words, this person can do real damage to me. Whereas I know that these Congress people who are asking me these questions, they're just looking for their moment in the sun. They just want that Oscar-winning performance. Right. So I'm gonna, give them this attitude. But with this attorney, I think it became very clear to Corey, and you saw it because he even stood up. He even sat up a little higher. It's like Corey understood at that moment, this dude can sink me. Like, these questions are serious. Like, these questions can really get me in trouble. And his whole disposition changed. And so I think going forward for these hearings, it is critical for the Democrats to have attorneys ask the questions, because one, it also looks less partisan, right?
So the optics are good too. Not just substantive's good, but optics are good.
Exactly. And in the perfect world, that's what you want. You want good substance and good optics, and you can have that. You can marry the two if you get an attorney to ask the questions.
So let's talk about, and by the way, there's breaking news, the whistleblower who was the one who triggered all of this. The only reason we know about all of this is because the whistleblower filed a formal complaint in accordance with the law that deals with national security whistleblowers. And the Trump administration did everything they could to hide it from us. And that got out. And we knew that it was very damning. So they're saying now the whistleblower agrees to testify as long as they get appropriate clearances to attend the hearing, because the threat of the Trump administration is still, if you say anything wrong, we're going to criminally prosecute you. And they want to prosecute this guy. Bill Barr and Trump does, because they want to make it clear if you come out against Trump administration, you're going to pay the price. So just update people
which is what is done in authoritarian regimes, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not how a democracy works. The whole point of the whistleblower laws is to protect the democracy and to give people comfort to come forward when they see wrongdoing, so that we can sort of stay as a democracy,
So let's talk about the widening scope of potential criminality. The most obvious is Rudy Giuliani, who was not only mentioned numerous times by Donald Trump in this conversation with the Ukraine, but also he was publicly talking in May. We covered this on the show a couple of nights ago in May about going to the Ukraine. Then we learned in August he had spoken to an official close to the Ukrainian president. That's even mentioned in this memo that, Giuliani talked to my guy, that kind of stuff. And it was all about getting dirt on Donald Trump, on Joe Biden to help Donald Trump. And I want to play one clip. Here's Judge Napolitano last night talking about, because at first he made the case, Judge Napolitano, that just before we even got this memo, that in his view, Donald Trump violated the Federal Election Commission laws by trying to get something of value from a foreign national.
That's right.
Here's clip number 7, Napolitano on Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani says he too pressed Ukrainian officials to investigate Biden at the direction, he says, of the administration. Is that a crime?
if that was done in order to enhance the president's re-election campaign, yes, it's the same crime that the president would have committed. If the president said, I want you to investigate my principal opponent's son, thinking to himself, it's going to help his campaign.
So there you've got Judge Napolitano who's pissing off the world of Trump now because he's telling people the law as it is.
Poor Judge Napolitano. He's been doing that for a while now, and he's been getting a lot of pushback from Fox viewers. He's been right.
He got slammed last night by Joe DeGenova, who was on Fox News all the time on Tucker's show. On Tucker's show, he called Judge Napolitano a staple of Fox News, like an idiot or a moron. So how does the criminal conspiracy get formed? Like, at what point is there criminal liability for Rudy Giuliani if he'd made these steps on trying to get dirt on Biden?
Right. Well, the criminal conspiracy is that he is effectively assisting Donald Trump to do this. There are federal statutes that cover bribery, federal statutes that say it's a crime, to demand and seek stuff for anything of value. The value here being not just for the benefit of Donald Trump's campaign, but obviously as the personal attorney, you've been paid. Right. So you've received a payment. And then we can talk later about what this does in terms of his standing with the bar, because it's been lawyers behaving badly this entire time with this administration. But, we can get to that at a later point. But just the idea that he would sort of step in and play this vital key role in helping Donald Trump, again, break the law, exposes him to liability with respect to bribery and also with respect to campaign, finance violation laws. Because as you know, with the campaign finance law, it's a federal law to solicit anything of value from a foreign national.
Right.
And the foreign national here being Ukraine, the president of the Ukraine, and the value being an investigation into Biden, which would help Donald Trump. But with respect to Giuliani, the value would be him being paid as well, is my understanding. I'm guessing he's paid.
I'm not sure. The case with Trump and Giuliani, he might be working for free at this point just to hang out with Trump. He gets to come into the White House, have dinner in the nice house.
But that's value too. That's value
right.
too. Value. See, when we look at how a statute is written and we try to determine whether or not the facts fit into whether someone has violated the statute or to defend the person against the statute, you look at, what is the value? And for someone like Giuliani, that is value. Having access to Donald Trump is value. Being invited to those fancy State Department dinners, that's value for Giuliani. How do we know that? He gets on Fox News almost every day, morning, noon, and night, to say that he's proud, that he loves being able to have such close proximity to Donald Trump.
And, I've got to just play. Here was Trump today asked about this whole situation. And I'm not even joking. Here's what he brings up in one of his defenses. Here's clip number 5.
Do you believe that these emails from Hillary Clinton, do you believe that they're in Ukraine? Do you think this whole thing...
I think they could be. You mean the 30,000 that she deleted?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they could very well. Boy, that was a nice question. I like that question. Because frankly, I think that one of the great crimes committed is Hillary Clinton deleting 33,000 emails after Congress sends her a subpoena.
It's not like we went in a time machine. That was today.
Yeah.
He pivots back to Hillary's emails.
You know what it is? He needs a new shtick. He really does. He understands that there's certain trigger words that work very well for his base. One of them is Hillary Clinton and her emails. The other is the wall, build the wall. The other is, law and order and trying, MS-13 is another one.
Right.
Like there's certain terms that is almost like a trigger for his base. And he knows that. And he knows. And you can tell because whenever he's in trouble, he's in the hot seat, some new illegality or alleged illegality has leaked, he pivots right away and starts talking about illegal immigration at the border, MS-13, we have to keep our people safe, Second Amendment guns, Hillary Clinton emails, something Obama did. Like it's almost textbook. And if you just pay attention, you will see that that's exactly what he's doing with that.
We're wondering how he will pivot beyond just talking about Joe Biden. What else will he do? And I had Paul Rykoff on last night, who's a veterans advocate. He's a veteran himself. That he said a lot of times when Trump has gotten a problem, he'll talk about something with the military. Not start a war, but like, I'm going to use money from the military to build something or do something with the military. And I thought it was interesting because we all know he will do some pivoting. Now, I want to talk about Bill Barr. Bill Barr is not an honest man. He was known as the cover-up AG from his work for the Bush's father before. He did a good job covering up for Trump when the Mueller report came out before we got it. Now his name is all over this. Over and over, Trump says to Ukraine's President Zelensky, I'm going to have Rudy Giuliani and Bill Barr. I'm going to have my poodle and my pug give you a call, either one of my two little dogs running around, and they're going to call you. And that resulted in Kamala Harris. Now, by the way, Barr came out formally and said, I did nothing for Trump in regards to Ukraine. So he said that today. I can't believe the guy, but he'll have to answer under oath to that. In fact, Kamala Harris said today, I asked Attorney General Barr in May, did the White House ever ask you to investigate anyone? He wouldn't answer. He needs to come back to Congress. And let's play this painful exchange where Senator Harris is asking Bill Barr under oath, a guy who's a seasoned lawyer, did Trump ever suggest you investigate everyone? It's a simple question, simple answer, but not when you're covering stuff up. Here's clip number 8, please.
Attorney General Barr, has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone?
I wouldn't.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that question?
I will repeat it. Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The president or anybody else?
Seems you would remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but...
Perhaps they've suggested?
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
Hinted?
I don't know.
Inferred? You don't know. Okay.
How
See that?
How hard? Tell
See
people
that?
as a lawyer.
Yeah.
If you're cross-examining someone
Yeah.
and they answered like that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. See, this is, and this sort of kind of harkens back to what we were talking about with respect to Congress having attorneys question witnesses. Kamala, as you know, an attorney, former AG, former DA of San Francisco. That is precisely how you question someone, but also show that their inability to answer the question is pure bullshit.
Right.
You heard what she said. She's like, sounds like you would remember something like that.
Right.
And then his hemming and hawing. And again, this is the Attorney General of the United States, the highest attorney in terms of position, in terms of prominence, has an inability answering a yes or no question. And then what you do to again underscore how it's absurd that he can't answer the question, she starts to give him suggestions.
Definitions of the word.
Definitions of the word. Like, okay, so let's play this game. Yeah. Let's play this game. You don't understand what the word suggest means, Mr. Attorney General? What about the word infer? What about you know what I mean? And that's how you sort of really cut someone's knees off in trial. I love it.
Like if you were asking a question to a witness and you ask a very simple question and they pause and they go, can you repeat that?
Right.
Right
it's
away.
It's a stalling tactic.
Right. Your sense is immediately as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And
it's not just your sense as a lawyer. It's the jury. It's the judge. It's the fact finder. Whoever is there trying to determine the credibility of the witness. Like, how can these are the things that make someone believe or not believe someone, is how you answer the question or how you don't answer the question. And so if you have a group of people who are either members of a jury or you have a bench trial and it's just a judge, and those people are there to assess your credibility, to sort of determine whether or not you're telling the truth, if that's someone who's not telling the truth, I do not find you credible.
Clearly, right.
It's clearly, and a 7-year-old can see it. You know what I'm saying?
So you mentioned, and it's not something talked about much, the idea of disbarring these lawyers. Because there's one thing, as lawyers, we're both lawyers, even though I don't practice anymore. I'm not disbarred.
God bless you.
Right. I'm not.
You're a recovering lawyer.
I'm not disbarred. So, but if I were to do something in my private life or in my work, even now, if I committed a crime, I could be disbarred,
That's
even
right.
though I don't practice right
That's
now.
right.
And in the practice of law, you're certainly held to a standard that it's below a crime. You can do something below actually committing a crime. You can get disbarred for it. In the case of like Giuliani,
or at least written up. At least written up. At least.
So
you know.
what? At what point do you think Giuliani is at peril for his legal license for some of this stuff. He's going on TV and lying to the public.
And this is what's interesting, because as attorneys, we have to follow rules of professional responsibility, ethical rules, and all of that. And the reason why those rules exist are for a variety of reasons. One, you want to protect the client, right? You want to make sure that the client isn't taken advantage of. You also want to create an environment where the client trusts the attorney. You have the attorney-client privilege and stuff like that. But also, most importantly, is so that when that attorney walks into the courthouse, the judge can trust what the attorney is saying. So if the attorney says, Your Honor, I called opposing counsel last week, I left 2 messages, they never got back to me, the judge needs to be able to believe that statement. The judge needs to understand, well, Your Honor, I sent them the discovery, we've had depositions. The judge needs to be able to know that you're telling the truth. Now, here's one of the cardinal rules of practicing law. During the practice of law, while representing a client, you are not supposed to lie.
Right.
You are not supposed to lie. So if he is so during this representation, and this is kind of how Michael Cohen also, I think, should be, dealing with the bar and facing charges from the bar as well, because Michael Cohen clearly lied during the course of his representation of Donald Trump. And Giuliani here has done the same thing. And he's made clear that he was representing Donald Trump during this process, right? He sat on TV. It's nothing. Why doesn't he shut up? I don't get it. Like, what is with the diarrhea of the mouth? Like, get off the TV. Stop telling everybody that you used your cell phone and the State Department called you. I'm like, is he just trying to let the State Department know that he got
that was crazy
that he got receipts? Like, it's just bananas.
I almost wrote about this, so it just jumped in my head. I was trying to write an article about a year ago, maybe 8-9 months ago, when Giuliani was on about Stormy Daniels and literally lying and getting caught lying. And I went and I just Googled it quickly here. There's a rule, if you're playing along at home, Rule 4.1 of the Rule of Professional Conduct.
Yep.
It says, in the course of representing a client, a lawyer shall not knowingly make a false statement of material fact or law to a third person.
Yep.
So if you go in front of the media and you lie about the facts of a case, like Giuliani has done, you could be suspended.
Yep.
You can be disbarred. You can be censured. In the case of Giuliani, who's done it over and over and over again, he should have been disbarred. He should at least had hearings now, disciplinary hearings into this. And I wish someone, not me, but someone who has the time wants to file a complaint against him. But let's take I'm chatting with Midwin Charles. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll take a call or two. There's some people on hold about this whole thing, about the law. She's a great lawyer, too. I'm not going to make you answer. Like, Danny Savalas comes on once a week.
I love Danny.
Sometimes we have him answer questions here and there, but they're just specific to a topic. We don't have, open... We don't
Open
do
mic.
It's not legal clinic time. But we're back with more of Midwin Charles, and we'll take a couple of calls as well, talking about this very issue, about your reaction to what we learned today. There's still breaking news going on. In fact, there's New York Times breaking news right now. It's remarkable how there's so much breaking news in the 7, 8 o'clock hour, because articles go to print, and they're saying the intelligence officer identified multiple White House officials as witnesses to potential presidential misconduct. That's apparently what's in the whistleblower complaint, but we're not getting names. We'll take a break, though. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. Be right back.
Look, it's time the media start calling out Trump's false statements for what they are. Lies. Trump is a liar. And by the looks of it, he's lying every day and twice on Sundays.
The Dean Obadala Show.
You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, Sirius XM's Progress.
Right then. And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Wednesday, September 25th, in studio with Midwin Charles, attorney you see her all the time on Joy Reid's show on MSNBC, giving great legal advice. She's a civil trial and criminal defense attorney. Let's take a couple of calls. Here is Sharon in Iowa with an interesting point. Sharon, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. Are we on? If you could take us off speaker, if you're on speaker, or if you're not, then go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Do your best.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, just echoey, but go ahead, my friend. Ask away.
Okay, I'm sorry. My question was, I was watching the press conference today, and I noticed that Trump said something about Nancy Pelosi and that she wasn't Speaker of the House anymore.
He said, I'll read the quote. Exact quote. Trump said, and the headline in Vice is, did Trump just fire Nancy Pelosi? Trump said, according to him, she's no longer Speaker of the House anymore. He goes, Nancy Pelosi, as far as I'm concerned, she's no longer Speaker of the House. Well, he does not elect the Speaker of the House. This is not a king who can dissolve the Congress or the Parliament like they have in monarchies. In certain cases, they can. So he might. I mean, Midwin, what's your reaction to this?
Listen, two can play that game. As far as I'm concerned, he's not president of the United States. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
This is just him doing what he does. Like I told you during the break, Trump is going to Trump. And one of the things that Trump does, because he truly believes this, he believes that he is a one-party person, that he is a king.
Right.
And he does have these authoritarian leanings, these fascist leanings, the way he talks about the media. He doesn't like criticism. He cries, oh my God, this is presidential harassment. Meanwhile, this is the same person for years, criticized Obama in every single thing, including because he played golf, because he wore a tan suit, because he allegedly was not born here, because he was Muslim and what have you. So this is Trump just being Trump, and just basically being dismissive of the leader of the House. It's rude, it's disrespectful, but again, that's Trump. Like, Trump is gonna Trump, so ignore him.
Really, Sharon, he has no power in that regard whatsoever. The people elected members of Congress, and in turn, they pick their speaker.
Yeah. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Sure, thanks for the call, Sharon. And, to your point, by the way, Midwin, as I was tweeting earlier, Donald Trump, the man that brought you Barack Obama, was born in Africa, now brings you Joe Biden committed crimes in the Ukraine.
Right.
I mean, it's the same BS.
All the time.
And it's so remarkable. The media, thankfully today, CNN and Emma's both cut away from his press conference saying it was so filled with lies we don't want to put on our air.
Yeah,
I like that.
Finally.
We're at that point.
But you know what? This is like I said before during our break. See, the best conversations happen during the break. What we would not get here had the media been doing that all along. See, when he lied about crowd size at the inauguration, there were a lot of people who were like, that's so funny. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But you don't get here if you don't stop and nip things at the bud there. And that's the problem when you lower your standards. They keep getting lower and lower and lower. And eventually you get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. Like, this is so bad. But it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens because we've had a media that has been, unfortunately, very complicit, a media that has been obsessed with whataboutism and both sides-ism, because they are feeling the pressure from the right and feel as though they have to present everything as fair. Not fair, but as balanced.
Right.
But there are certain things that don't have another side.
I agree.
There are certain things where you
true.
don't have to go into, like, racism is bad. Treating people of color is bad. There's no other side to that.
No, and Edward R. Murrow, famous journalist, said famously there are certain issues that don't have two sides.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, though, who is more at fault, the media or Democrats in the House did not support impeachment? As we were talking about in the break, AOC over the weekend said the biggest scandal, I'm paraphrasing this, the biggest scandal was not that what Trump did with Ukraine, it was that the Democrats did not react and didn't do what they were supposed to do. And Liz Warren used remarkable words saying that she said, after the Mueller report, this is what Liz Warren said on Friday on Twitter, after the Mueller report, Congress had a duty to begin impeachment. By failing to act, Congress is complicit in Trump's latest attempt to solicit foreign interference to aid him in U.S. elections. That's before the House announced that they were going to do impeachment. That was Friday. Who's more at fault? The Democrats or media? Or can you not make a differentiation or allocation of fault here?
My favorite answer on the LSAT, all of the above.
All of the above.
It's all of the above because I think Warren is correct, AOC is correct, and you know how you presented with respect to the media, it's all correct. You know, I think one of the reasons why I think Democrats won the House in 2018 is because most of America wanted there to be checks and balances on this president. I mean, healthcare, affordable healthcare was a big deal, definitely, but also I think people recognize that this president is a little bit off the rails and he needs to be checked. He needs to be reined in, right? And Democrats didn't do as effective a job in doing that. They tried, but I think they were not unified. And it's not just impeachment, right? It's not just, which I think they should have after the Mueller report. I mean,
I agree.
The special counsel outlines 10 instances of this president obstructing justice, which is clearly a high crime and misdemeanor, and you do nothing. You just sit back and wait. Like, are you kidding me? But apart from that, it's not just impeachment. It's holding people accountable. Accountability matters. You don't get a Corey Lewandowski sauntering into Congress and disrespecting Mr. Nadler and all these people asking him questions if he didn't feel that there wasn't anyone that was going to do anything about it. And it's because there's been no sense of accountability on all fronts, right? Remember, Congress requested Donald Trump's tax returns from Steve Mnuchin. He never turned them over. Was he held accountable for that?
No.
Nothing at all. And so, you don't get here without Democrats not doing their job along the way. So even if they didn't move on impeachment after the Mueller report, they also failed to do all these other things that I'm talking about. Corey Lewandowski should have been let out in handcuffs.
And you're right.
My client would have been. Any of my clients would have been.
And the one thing is Speaker Pelosi did say that he should have been held in contempt right there and was disappointed with Gerald Nadler, the chair of House Judiciary. The breaking news, by the way, the article's up now in the New York Times. It simply says the whistleblower complaint. There were other people in the White House who have witnessed misconduct by Donald Trump.
Of course.
And what they mean by this is probably names of people. While the Daily Beast, and I write for the Daily Beast weekly, so my colleagues at Daily Beast have a new thing saying there's the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador apparently, or an ambassador. U.S. ambassador was roped into Giuliani's quest to smear Biden. And that ambassador, if it's the one I'm thinking of, was
fired, right?
Recalled and then fired a short time ago. And maybe it's because that person will not play
Refused,
ball
right.
and do this game. So you're having people. This is unbelievable. We're watching Watergate in real time. But it's not just Watergate. It's like Watergate times 12. It's like a bunch of little mini, right? I mean, they're just so many. I mean, pick one. Just pick one. That's the hardest thing. It gives you so many.
How many WTFs are we on at this point? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It is. I mean, I will say this. Richard Nixon reminds me of Trump often. Richard Nixon, Watergate was bugging the Democratic National Committee in all to help Richard Nixon win re-election.
Right.
And the same thing of wiretapping people and using the FBI to go after and investigate his political opponents. What Richard Nixon did and got him impeached, although not formally because he resigned before it went to the formal House, that was this exact same thing. That Trump has just taken it to different levels. Richard Nixon never asked world leaders to spy on his adversary. This is what it's off the charts. Let's take one before we run out of time. Let's take another call. Here's Mike in Florida. Mike, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great and I'm loving the show. It's great to hear such intelligent women.
Oh, thank you.
And that goes to Midwin and Miss Jamel, I guess it was, or.
Rula Jabril, who was just on. Rula's great, too. Yeah. We only have the best people on this show, the smartest people. That's all we got. That's Mike. Trump is a Jersey guy. Go ahead. So, Mike, go ahead, my friend. We got a couple minutes.
And the smartest callers, too.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely, Mike. I agree.
Listen, you guys are a little being unfair to Trump because he does have some foresight. And when he made that mention about Nancy Pelosi, if this week keeps up, she'll probably be president.
That's a very interesting point because that was trending earlier on Twitter today. President Pelosi. It was trending during the show live.
Oh, wow.
There you are. Everything's fine. Come on out here, man. Oh, I'm on the phone. Come right out.
Mike, who are you talking to? You're on the show. What's going on? You're on a live national radio show. What are you doing?
I know. Can you believe it? You won't believe it. I can't even tell you, but I just want to say this because I got to run outside.
Okay.
But listen, keep in mind.
We'll let you go, Mike. You called us. So go ahead.
this didn't start with Trump. It started
That's
in
right.
the 50s with McCarthyism and Roy Cohn.
Yeah.
I can give you 10 other incidents of Trumpism in America. So keep that in mind, America. We'll get rid of this guy. We need to get rid of everything, and then we need to talk about this for the next 50 years.
Yeah, and then we need to sanitize the White
Exactly.
House.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Purell
I keep
that.
saying we got to do a gut renovation of the White House and not even mention him. I don't even want him to be called the 45th president. I say this is the thing on the promos that come back. I really think this should just be like a straight line, and there's 44. There's Obama, and then whoever wins, whoever might be after that. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back with a minute or two on the other side.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. The Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back to Dean Obadala Show. We're live Wednesday, September 25th in studio. Midwin Charles making her debut here on the Dean Obadala Show, but you see her often on Joy Reid shows, especially on MSNBC, a legal, civil trial, and criminal defense attorney. So we have literally 2 minutes, as they just told me in my ear. Mm-hmm. What's your take? The 2020 election, we've stopped covering it for the last week because of the craziness. The latest polls show Liz Warren leading within the margin of error, but leading in Iowa, in New Hampshire, cutting into South Carolina lead. Biden's still leading there. Cutting to lead in Florida. It's still Biden's leading there. Do you think this trajectory is a trend that's continuing, or? And this has nothing to do with what's going on now. No. This is all before this stuff.
Yeah, it's a trend that I see continuing because I think one of the things that Elizabeth Warren has been able to do is be consistent with being who she is in terms of I think as people take a look at her, they're looking at someone who is able to kind of just explain things and keep things very plain. I think that that's a problem that Democrats have had for a long time.
Right.
All of them, really, with respect to messaging, with respect to kind of making things plain and getting people to understand. What I also find surprising is that Bernie Sanders is not rising in the polls. He's actually been quite stagnant, which I think is interesting because one could say that Elizabeth Warren has very much similar ideas, if not the same as his. She's expounded on them a little bit, and I think she goes a little further than he does. Bernie always comes off as though he's sort of a one-trick pony. You know, you ask him what are his thoughts on Saudi Arabia, and he'll be like the number one, the 1%. You know, he's got the same answer for every question.
Look, we only have 45 seconds. I will say that the poll in Iowa showing her beating
Biden
by 2 points. It's also showing potential for even more because she's the number one second choice of people by 20%, while only 10% of Biden and Bernie. So, Midwin, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Where can people follow you on Twitter? People follow
at Midwin Charles on Instagram, at Midwin on Facebook, YouTube.
It's all Midwin
that.
Charles. Check her out. I'm at Dino Badala. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to chatting with a lot tomorrow night. And again, Midwin, thanks very much for being here.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Absolutely.